Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up, a concise show dedicated to bringing you the most relevant independent news as we see it from the last 24 hours. Friday, July 17th, 2020. Thank you for joining me today. It's going to be likely a far shorter show than usual. Apologize right off the bat that this is not live. Of course, today there was a lot going on. I had a great interview today with T. West on Afro Synergy News. I'll make sure to include that below. We had a really fantastic conversation. He really just does a great job over there, so I hope you'll check it out. But there's so much going on. I just wanted to make sure I got something out for you today. There was a few things I wanted to point out, but I didn't have time to set everything up for the live show. So, of course, we'll be doing those normally going forward for those that may be here new. But most of the stuff I'm going to talk about today is not really even new. I mean, all of it's basically just fighting back against the propaganda, against stuff that I feel we've already very clearly gone over, very clearly shown you the reality. But there's some important things that have developed within that discussion, masks, vaccines, everything that's going on that I'm going to point out to you today, which bolsters the reality of the evidence we've already shown you, as well as the reality that you should be able to make the choice for yourself, because it's supported by the science and because it's supported by everything else we're pointing out. Even as they scream about the science, most of these people have not even actually looked at the science. It's like hashtag actually look at the science. I keep saying that. You're fake news. Actually look at the science, because if you're saying that, you haven't actually looked at it. Even we're going to get into Ben Swan's video again, just some things that were comments on in the same exact way. That video was very clear. Not saying anything other than the fact that the evidence shows you, their studies show you that they have never come to the conclusion that there's enough evidence that these things actually protect you. That's all he said. Do it if you want. People lost their minds. And of course, he goes over everything in that video that we've been saying for a month now, but it's good to see that more people are pointing this stuff out. But in the hopes of keeping this short, because ultimately there's not that much to get into today, I want to start off with a quick point for some of you that may have seen this already, that yet another video from the Last American Vagabond was just censored. Now, this is the one about the lawyer speaking, which is really crazy to think about. As I said in my tweet, YouTube censors our video of a lawyer pointing to CDC and officially released data. That's all she was doing, because this, quote, disputes the efficacy of the World Health Organization, as they put it, even as it's verifiably accurate, understand. According to them, it's not allowed. Watch it on BitChute, and I put the link. Tell me this is not wrongthink. You can see it saying right there. YouTube doesn't allow content that explicitly disputes the efficacy of the World Health Organization. So not just the efficacy of their information, but the efficacy of them as an organization. Realize that that's very different. Or local health authorities recommending guidance on social. So we can't even challenge the recommendations of the authority. Think about how crazy and Orwellian that is. And they even list off recommended guidance on social distancing and self-isolation that may lead people to act against the guidance. You know, these guidances, that two of which we're going to go over, are wrong. And we're going to show you that they turn out to be wrong. But even as they continually turn out to be wrong, we're still not even allowed to challenge it, as so they say. But realize that it actually says guidance in social distancing and self-isolation. That's in their guidelines now. YouTube has added this. So let's pretend like COVID is going to go away, and not that they're creating a new future for us around the idea of COVID-19 and viruses in general, making new guidelines and rules that won't be temporary. Really alarming to see, wouldn't you say? But they removed this video because we challenged it. But realize that every other thing we're talking about on this channel is also basically doing the same. So why did they pick that one and not remove the channel or every other video? Which may still be happening in the next so many days. Who knows when that will come? But the point is that they're choosing that video. You should ask yourself why, especially when all the other videos also dispute the efficacy of the World Health Organization, as I'll flat out call them a defunct organization that's completely corrupt and politicized. But yeah, this video will probably be there tomorrow, we'll hope. But this one, however, won't be. Lawyer speaks out about the illegal and unscientific COVID-19 solution being forced on you right now. Here's the video. Now, I'm not going to play this thing all the way through. I actually would if I wasn't in short for time, because everything in this video is completely verified. So I want to go through it step by step and actually show you. And if they're willing to censor me for referencing and showing you the data and then showing it's verified by the CDC and the NIH, well, that just shows you even more certainly where we are. But this may actually be not, the BitChute doesn't really give you the good, here, actually, let's do this. I'll just mute it. Let's keep it playing. Now, I want to go through this and at least try to catch some of the points where she's saying, okay, here we go. The COVID-19 fatality rate in the United States for anyone younger than 19 is so low it's calculated at 0. Directly from Bloomberg. Did they censor Bloomberg? No, they didn't. But why is she being censored for pointing to something that's been verified by the mainstream media? Not that it being verified by the mainstream media means that it's real, but understand the contradiction there. And guess what? What she says right there, that's correct. But they censored the video. Let's continue. And that, I mean, she's a lawyer, right? So she has the right to talk about the legalities of the things that they're doing. No child known to have passed COVID-19 on to adults. Directly from Sky News. But apparently that's fake news because it's being censored. Okay. Here's me talking in the video. It's not as conducive on BitChute, you can see, as it's harder to get an accurate location of where you're looking at. But even just that first point sends it, it lets you see what I'm talking about. Everything she's talking about in this video. Okay, this is the part where she talks about the fact that the idea of social isolation was a CIA tactic. Is that fake? Not at all. In fact, it's 100% verifiable. And the fact that we are now, quote, social distancing, which is really just simply isolation, forced isolation, that becomes relevant. But even though it's accurate and she shows you the documents, that's fake news, according to YouTube. Lockdown has left pupils withdrawn and disturbed. And it goes on to talk about how these children who have a 0% chance of dying from this, according to the CDC, literally according to the CDC, and that's also verified, that these kids are having a dramatic negative side effect from all of this. And that's being censored because they want you to think that that's fake news. Hopefully one more point. I thought there was at least one more thing I wanted to show you in here. I really, really hope that you will watch this full video because she does a really good job of breaking this stuff down and showing you the lies and how they're misrepresenting the reality. I mean, even this on BitChute has almost 6,000 views, guys. This is a home run. And there's nothing about this that is unscientific, nothing about what she's saying that is unverified. The only thing that makes it not okay is because we're told not to listen to it. And all the dutiful people out there screaming about how you're being irresponsible by thinking for yourself and listening to stats and data that are verified, recognize how crazy that makes where we are. This will be included. Hopefully you'll watch it because all it really matters is that you watch it, not that you watch it on YouTube or that it gets 1 million views, simply that people have the right and the ability to see it. But according to YouTube, you're not allowed to. Moving on. UK Health Minister calls for urgent review after scientists expose over-exaggeration of COVID-19 death toll. Right? Well, this is on RT. That must be fake news, right? Well, that's what people are doing today. Not who cares that it's an actual direct statement from UK Health Minister, but no, because it's on RT or because it was featured on an RT show, suddenly that makes it easily dismissible, and that's lazy. And that's what they want. They want you apathetic and lazy and willing to dismiss things because you were told to. Well, guess what? This is happening. UK Health Minister Matt Hancock has ordered an urgent review into how Public Health England, PHE, calculates coronavirus death figures. Now, doesn't this seem relevant? It comes after 2 UK-based scientists highlighted the serious flaw in their statistics. Okay, well, let's take a quick jump back to this idea and realize, okay, wait a minute, they're telling you can't challenge these things. Well, they're specifically talking about the World Health Organization, but realize the same context here. It could just as easy have been the World Health Organization making some kind of a claim that's later found out to be false, which has happened a lot, even in this one COVID-19 scenario. Okay, same thing. UK is censoring people. The UK government is deleting and censoring and arresting people for all kinds of things in regard to this COVID-19 situation, including challenging their official narratives. Well, here you go. If you had come out before this and said, that's not accurate, they're bloating the death numbers. You didn't even necessarily say it was intentional. That would be censored. You'd be attacked. You'd be called irresponsible. How dare you put everyone at risk? Well, guess what? They are bloating the death numbers, whether or not it was intentional, which means you've always had the right and would have been correct to challenge whether or not it was as severe as they were telling you. Even if it's 1% more severe, you're correct to say that it's not accurate. But now we're finding out it's a hell of a lot more than 1%. Hancock called for an investigation on Friday after confirmation that COVID-19 fatality figures for England include people who tested positive for the deadly virus months before they died. So let me clarify. Let me finish the paragraph. However, in other UK nations, such as Scotland and Northern Ireland, they only include deaths in their daily count if someone died within 28 days of testing positive. So the breakdown, because it took me a second, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not understanding. I'd really think about this for a second. The point is they're testing people. They're testing positive, or so we're told. Understand that even that should be questioned because we know these tests are in fact shown to be inaccurate and that we haven't isolated this on and on and on. But the point is that they're testing positive. Months go by. They get better, right? It goes away. They have antibodies. They get in a car accident and die. Guess what? They get marked as COVID-19. Why? Because on the records, they have a positive test. And let's just make it even more specific. If they simply are in the hospital, they leave. They get better. Then they get sick again. Maybe the flu, maybe something else. Then they die. Even though they got better and recovered, they're still being counted as COVID-19. That's what they're saying here. Months after. The point being in Ireland and Scotland, they're only making sure they're people that in fact actually got sick and then actually died, or so we're told, from this actual virus. Or at the very least, within 28 days, which doesn't even seem to be accurate even then, right? Because we're talking about weeks turnaround time here. So that means that seems to suggest there's a whole grouping of time there where they could actually just get sick and die from something else, which seems to be one of the hugest parts about this whole thing. Comorbidities. Now, it says the critical difference in how deaths are recorded may explain why England's death toll has remained higher than its neighboring nations. It says the analysis in regard to a Oxford University study conducted by two scientific statisticians showed that the Public Health England has been recording the deaths of people who have previously tested positive for the disease as coronavirus death, no matter if they had fully recovered from the virus before they died. Now, does anyone, even for the briefest moment, think that that is a smart thing to do? Think that that they're just erring on the side of caution? That is an overt manipulation. They fully recovered, and then they die a month later, and they're being marked as death. That is a lie. It says a patient who has tested positive but successfully treated and discharged from the hospital. Understand, so they've been tested positive, but they have also then been discharged because the hospital deemed them to be healthy. Antibodies, they're good to go. Send them on their way. They'll still be counted as COVID death even if they have a heart attack or are run over by a bus 3 months later. Let that sink in, guys. This is the reality of where we are, and this is not just the UK. As Dr. Berg, we're being very liberal with the death count. Yeah, and then using those liberal fake numbers to force you to take actions against your will. It says get this, this is wild. Between March 1st and June 30th, there were 50,335 deaths involving coronavirus in England and Wales. But 46,736 of those had COVID-19 assigned as the underlying cause of death, meaning that these were things that were put on after the fact. 46,000 of 50,000. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. Unbelievable. If that's the case, I mean, look, this shouldn't be a slant that you shouldn't walk away thinking that is exactly, there could be other factors involved, but we know as a matter of fact that they are not accurate. That's the only thing I keep saying. We know that that's not accurate. That is not how many people have died. To what degree? I leave that up to you to do your own due diligence. But we know that they are inaccurate. We know the tests are not giving us exact results. We know that the people that are being treated as cases are also being manipulated. These aren't accurate. We know as a matter of fact. Why? Because they themselves have admitted to it. For your safety, of course. But as I keep saying, that's all good. As long as you're not going to use those admitted fake numbers to keep us on lockdown, force you to wear a mask, inject something into your arm, and restrict you from living your normal life on numbers that you just admitted were not accurate. Moving on to masks, because this is exactly, this is the leading concept here, which just has to show you how easy we are, how led by the nose we are by propaganda. Where, while we're buying toilet paper at $1,000, buying toilet paper as if it's the new currency, because they make it seem like this is something we need and there's going to be a shortage. And now suddenly, because even as they know that their science from the last however many years have never confirmed that these things actually keep you safe, and yet they are now pushing these on you. And because they say so, we do it. As the other video I pointed out actually today on my interview with T. West, right? The idea that this is easily verifiable. There were 1.5 million deaths from tuberculosis last year. As he said in the video, why were you not wearing a mask during the tuberculosis pandemic? Well, because the mainstream media didn't tell you to. Well, this time they did. And it's clear that that's all it takes. Now, I'm not going to rehash everything every time I talk about this topic, even though that really ends up being what you have to do to get maybe just one of the people that are saying that we're anti-science to see what we're saying. Just one out of the hundreds of thousands out there that are saying we're being irresponsible and trust the science, even as they're not looking at the science. It's still worth it to get that one person. But the problem is that I can't do that for all you watching every day because you've all seen this already. But I will include the links like I have been doing every time. But building off what we've already talked about, and I will go over a couple of the points today, here's another edition. This is actually from April, but it is from 2020. Commentary, masks for all, for COVID-19, not based on sound science. Now look, this doesn't mean they're correct, doesn't mean that they couldn't have been mistaken or some other variation. But the point is, how many things are we going to dismiss before we realize that this is not a slam dunk, right? This is not complete. The science is not settled as we keep hearing about everything these days, even though science is really never settled. It's always evolving. This is not as clear-cut as they want you to think that it is. In fact, it's very clear that there's no evidence to suggest that it actually does anything for you. As every single study, as Ben Swan's recent video showed you from 2015, 2020, from the NIH and CDC, say that exact same thing, most of which I've already shown you on this show. But my point to show you this is from the University of Minnesota. Right? This is another university. Now, actually, I'm noticing I have it on the Wayback Machine, because I feel like this one's going to get deleted. But behind the Wayback Machine marker, the thing at the top in red, it says University of Minnesota. And easily verifiable for you guys to check out when you see the links. But this is the University of Minnesota that is 100% saying that what they're telling you is not backed by the science. And again, anybody can make mistakes. But how many universities, Nobel laureates, dedicated, the leading scientists in Bulgaria, virologists in Taiwan. How many people are we going to continue to hear say this before we go, okay, maybe it's not as cut and dry as the government wants us to think it is. Maybe because there's an agenda behind it. That never happens. Well, this is exactly what this article is saying. Bottom line, as you'll read it for yourself, hopefully, is that they come to the same conclusion. That there is not enough data to suggest that these things actually help you. Either way, inward or outward, the data is still lacking, since it's technically a plural word. But, and by the way, it makes the same points as we keep saying today. Is wearing a face cloth better than nothing? And no, by the way, the evidence is also not there. In fact, the only evidence we do have from the CDC and NIH is that the cloth ones actually make more potential risk. It creates more problematic situations. You get sicker is the bottom line. But the point I want to show you for this is that on July 16th, so yesterday, the editor of this put a note on here. And good for them, standing up for what they said. No, they didn't bow to the pressure. It says, editor's note, the authors added the following statement on July 16th. Why? Because people are going after them now. It says, the authors and CIDRAP have received requests in recent weeks to remove this article from the website. Reasons have included, 1, we don't truly know that cloth masks are not effective. Don't you love that claim, the statement? So, if we don't know, it means we don't know. Yet they're claiming on the other side that they do. But yet their argument is that we don't know that they're not effective. So apparently they think we know they're effective, but we don't know that they're not effective. How does that even make sense, right? This is the kind of bending over backward to make this make sense to somebody. But either way, that's their argument.
That we don't truly know that they're not effective, even though every study from the groups they're pointing to say that they don't have the evidence, which means we do know that that's the case. But it says, since the data is so limited, exactly our point, by the way. Number 2, wearing a cloth mask or face covering is better than doing nothing. Hey, we keep hearing that, don't we? Well, as I keep showing you, and I'm going to show you once again, that's not the truth. That's not the case, not the truth. Their studies show you that's not the case. Number 3. The article is being used by individuals and groups to support non-mask wearing where they're mandated. Now get what this means. That whole argument is not that this is incorrect, even though that's what they're also saying. The argument is simply that, well, if your argument, even if true, is being used by people with bad intentions, is what they're trying to say, well, then we should remove it. Is this not the perfect example of what we're always saying today? They're attacking your intentions, not your statements. Is what they're saying wrong? Is the data incorrect? No. But they don't like how people are making it look like that. Think about how crazy that is. This is Orwellian. They're trying to control your perception. You're not allowed to see this truthful information because they think you'll misunderstand it and think a different way, even though it's very clear. What they don't want is for you to see it and understand that they're wrong. And this is number 4. There are now many modeling studies suggesting, gotta love that cloth masks or face coverings would be effective at flattening the curve. Yeah, we're well on our way to that, aren't we? Isn't it weird how this idea, and I'm going to point to a Gavin Newsom thing in a moment, this flattening the curve idea has just, it's how pervasive it is. Like, that's long gone. Like, this whole V-shaped thing that's not, we got to get that curve down, everybody wear a mask. Like, it's so dumb to see that that train that boat has sailed. Right? We are long past the idea of somehow flattening a curve. What we're witnessing now is the side effects of what they're giving us. Their solution is this is where we are. So to pretend that many modeling studies, which mean that they're not even accurate, some of they just guessed at this based on previous events, or that's what modeling is. That now these modeling studies, they don't even know they suggest. So hypothetical studies then guess at the idea that cloths may be effective, but make us do it. Remove your article based on a scientific article because they think it may be problematic. Just think about how crazy that is. On and on and on we see this stuff. But guess what? This was shared by Jonathan. A really great thread, by the way. A lot of information in here. A lot of it's just kind of quotes from different people that you should at least be considering. You know, Nobel laureates and other scientists and different things. But this, just today in particular, that's what I wanted to show you. I hope you'll take the time to actually look through the thread because there's a lot of good information in there. But, what are we talking about here? Like, how can we continue to be in this position where that's the reality? And that's been verified since long before we got here. But suddenly, because politicians tell you that this is the case, and they trot out a couple of bought-off people to say what they want them to, they make this the reality. And they sell you on this stuff. And mask companies make money, and people are invested, such as groups like BlackRock, who have a huge amount of investment in the production of N95 masks. But let's pretend like that means nothing, right? But the profit is only one small part of this. It's all about control. But at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. It should be your choice because we know, based on the science, that they do not actually do what they're telling you they do. At the very least, they've never been able to prove that based on the science. So that means there is no science that says that they do. So what are they screaming about when they say trust the science? Well, here's a new one that I thought very relevant before I get into the old one we pointed out. I haven't showed you this one yet. From 2019, added to the growing list, optical microscopic study of surface morphology and filtering efficacy of face masks. Somebody recently just sent me this, I believe, yesterday. Now, just right to the results. Now, the particulate matter filtering efficacy of 4 of the selected masks range from 63 to 84. So right off the bat, understand that means none of them effectively stop everything, even your mouth. Right? That's what this is, particulate matter. We're not talking about viruses here. We're talking about the idea of you coughing and sneezing. So even that only gets 63 to 84 depending on the mask. That's the best possible scenario, even in regard to the way that they know that they work and have always used them. That doesn't factor in the idea of viruses or the other way around. right? The idea that, not the doctor gets coughing on the patient, but the sick person wearing it to try to stop them getting other people sick, or you wearing it because you think you're asymptomatic or you may spread, or all the narratives that have been pushed out. Even in that context, it's not even, it maybe at best 84. But then it goes on to say, interestingly, they found that efficacy dropped by 20% after the fourth washing and drying cycle. So this is specifically about cloth masks. And you know why that's relevant? We're going to get to next, because as of the most recent information, they are still swearing to you that only cloth masks are the best thing for you. Straight up and down that they're saying cloth masks, cloth masks, cloth masks. Why? Right? Why not? Why not continue to make other masks that why not stress N95 respirators? Sure, maybe we don't have enough, but yeah, use those acts to make more. That's not what I want. My point is that it's weird that they have the setup to do that, but they're not. And they're still forcing in the idea of cloth masks, even though we know they make you more sick, which I'll show you next. But the point is that everyone's wearing those because that's what the CDC is telling them to do. So they're wearing cloth masks. And you know what they're doing? They're washing them. They're trying to keep them clean. So they wash and they dry them. And it says that the efficacy dropped by 20% just after the fourth cycle. It says they have observed a change in pore size and shape and a decrease in microfibers within the pores of after washing. Now understand, even if you're using a fresh one every time, they're saying it's not effective completely. And that's even just stopping spit, right? But then you wash it and then the pores get worse. So if it's a surgical mask, well, it's not effective. If it's a cloth mask, it gets more and more ineffective as you continue to wash it. Stretching the cloth mask surface also altered the pore in size and potentially decreased its filtering efficacy. Every time you put it on. It says this study showed that the filtering efficacy of cloth masks were relatively lower, and washing and drying them deteriorated the efficacy, right? That's very, very clear. So then why, ask yourself, are they telling you that you should be wearing them today as of July 16th? Only cloth masks. CDC recommends that people wear cloth face coverings in public. And remember, public means everywhere outside of your home and when around people who don't live in your household. This is cloth coverings may help prevent people from COVID-19 spreading to other viruses. You know why they say may? Because they know that that's not true. And they know that the studies have not verified it. Why would you say that? Okay, let me ask you this. If you did all these studies and all the studies only showed that the only thing it does was stop some of their spit from your mouth, and all the other studies that actually researched whether or not it stops viruses, all of them came back saying that there wasn't enough evidence to suggest that that's what they did. Would you then go on to say, well, they may help you? Or would you say, do this because it stops spit from flying in people's faces sometimes? Right? I mean, realize that they're choosing to misrepresent. It may help you, and that's not inaccurate because who knows? It may. Does that sound like science? Knowing that CDC studies, that they have their own information. As I'm using the Brave browser now, it seems to take a second when you want to load these things, but that's okay. It's better to use. Oh, that's the wrong one. This one. Right? This is the study that I keep showing you from May 2020 that flat out says that there is not enough evidence to suggest that these things do anything. And as Ben Swan even pointed out in regard to all of this, that this shows you that they in fact, everything I've been saying, from the random controlled trials to the mask to the hand hygiene, everything Ben Swan went over and came to the same conclusions, which that can mean whatever you want it to mean. But the point is, plenty of other people are also seeing the exact same thing. Exact same thing. That all of these came to the conclusion. As I'm just blanking on seeing it right now. In pooled analysis, we found no significant reduction in influenza transmission with the use of face masks. And it goes on to point out that it goes either way. Either way. Whether or not you're the doctor or the person sick or any of this stuff. Right? This is in May. So they know this. This is their study. This is the CDC. So ask yourself why a couple of months later, they say something different. Because you understand, there hasn't been another study in the same way. There hasn't been. And this is what I find most interesting. As I keep showing you, another study from the NIH and the U.S. National Library of Medicine from 2015, it says quite clearly, cloth masks had a significantly higher rate of influenza-like illness compared to the control arm. The analysis showed that the virus was significantly higher in the cloth mask group. It compared to even medicals. It says the penetration of the cloth mask by particles was almost 97%. 97 and medical 44 in the best case scenario. Meaning viruses get through no matter what you do. 50% of the time, might as well not wear it. Because I understand that doesn't mean that one time nothing gets through, the next time some gets through. It means that every time half of it's getting through. So it doesn't make any difference. So knowing this, ask yourself why they decided to update their mandates and say, well, yeah, you know what? Now we just think you should wear cloth masks. Here's something interesting. Here's an Instagram post that says, and this is accurate. I've found this in multiple places. This is paperwork from the CDC after the person got tested for COVID. It says the CDC does not recommend that people who are well wear a face mask to protect themselves from respiratory diseases, including COVID-19. So COVID-19, meaning, so this is after this has been going on. But here's what it looks like when you actually open the page. False information reviewed by independent fact checkers. So a document during this about COVID-19 from the CDC is false. Interesting. Well, let's find out why. Oh, look at this. The claim is based on outdated guidance. The CDC now recommends masks for all. So this guy gets a paper from the CDC. He goes home, he posts it. They say it's fake news because, well, they've updated it. Can you believe that? This is actually what they link to. And it says that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend that healthy people not wear masks. No, that's not true. Why? Because they revised their guidelines in April. Okay, based on what? That's what we were pointing to here. Well, if you actually look into it, the only thing they link to is emerging evidence from clinical laboratory studies. And if you go through every single one of them, 90% of them don't have any posted information, so you'd have to take their word for it. And the other ones don't even seem relevant to the discussion. I went through every single one. The point being, as Ben Swan points out himself, we're showing you studies that verifiably prove that their conclusion was there's no evidence to suggest they say they protect you from 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, all the way. And they still tell you the cloth to help you, even though the cloth very clearly in their own study says they get you more sick. Right up until April, they're saying don't wear a mask because it won't protect you. And then suddenly in April, they decide to change that based on no study, no new compilation of information from the CDC that did exactly what these studies did. Nope. Or rather this one. Nope. None of it. They simply point to a compilation of abstract studies from other locations as if developing information suggested. And all it really comes down to is that, it may help you. It's most likely to reduce the spread. And that's a flat out lie because their most recent study literally said the exact opposite. So what the hell are we talking about? What we're talking about is a concerted effort to absolutely deceive you in every possible way for control. And it's alarming that they can have stuff like this and actually point to the CDC itself saying something and say that's fake news. Because a month after that, they changed their mind based on pressure from political people. Pretty crazy, wouldn't you say? Here I post a video that I made just the other day saying exactly this. All the mass studies from the CDC and NIH have come to the same conclusion. They don't protect you. That is 100% accurate. Now, you could argue that they're wrong, but that is 100% accurate. And all somebody can respond with is they protect others. So not even reading it or looking at it or checking out anything we're doing, they just respond with their reflexive response because they know that's not true, because Fox said, because CNN said, right? Or maybe even because they've chosen to research one person who is adamantly saying that's the case. Are you researching their documentation? Most likely not. You know why? Because that documentation doesn't exist in regard to the argument I'm making here. But he goes on to say they mitigate it, not stop it. But okay, this is the point. If you're wearing a mask and 30% of it gets through, that means every time 30% of that virus is getting through. So you could argue that in some way minimizes it, which, by the way, there's no evidence to show that based on all of their studies. But at the same time, we know that masks actually create an unsafe environment, as OSHA itself has pointed out. I have all kinds of documentation from OSHA saying that 19.5 is the oxygen level, 17.5 becomes dangerous, and that's exactly what happens in every test we've ever seen in regard to wearing a mask for a period of time, right? The point is that, yeah, you can wear it under that level for some time, and it won't kill you. Maybe you'll get a headache and have some problems, but if you're going to make this a mandate and it's every day and it's 90 degrees outside and children are playing in the playground with masks on, that will have a collective ongoing effect that will never stop. And I'm sure they'll have drugs ready to go just for those headaches, right? Very effective at slowing the spread. And all I can do is respond and say, look, the science from the people you're actually thinking you're referencing literally say otherwise. From every year between 2015 and 2020, every time they came to the same result. There's no evidence they work. And I said, here's a few, and listed 4 of them. But of course, they only read the last one and says that this is only about one thing. Coronavirus is not an honest representation, right? Again, and it just baffles me. Because all 4 of these are varying different things based on different things. Influenza, rotaviruses, different locations, household studies, random controlled trials from the NIH, the CDC, and OSHA. And yet all they can say is that that's not a good representation. Do you realize what we're doing? I mean, it is, we're fighting against a cult. Just like I pointed out the other day. When you try to rescue somebody from a violent, sexually abusing cult, in some cases throughout history, those people will actually violently defend their captor because they're brainwashed. Decades later, they go, my God, I don't even know what I was doing. I was completely lost. But they'll fight to the death to maintain their captor's imprisonment of them. Same thing here. Now, of course, I link Ben Swann's video after that and just say, did you read all those things or but one? And of course, somebody else follows up and says, this guy's video, and this is the point I was making earlier, was literally featured on Russia Today. Oh my God. This is literally just propaganda using cherry-picked and out-of-context research. So he's claiming that every single study on this topic from the CDC and the NIH from 2015, 2020 are cherry-picked and out of context. I mean, just think about how ridiculous that is. Think about how ignorant that is. That's what I said. Have you even looked at these studies from NIH, OSHA, all of it? All saying there's no evidence? The level of ignorance is astounding that people are displaying. It really is. My point in even showing you this stuff is so you guys see what we're up against and realize that there's a level of social engineering that's happening right now that is very, very dangerous. And it should show us how much we need to jump into action. Now, here's the image he's showing you. Under Ben Swann's video, somebody posted this. A great video with all the material. I mean, it didn't include the links, but you can see the links on the website, on the video. I've included the links, so I know that they're real. They say, do you realize that everybody thinks you're a huge POS for constantly posting this garbage, he says? I'm going to be unfriending you now. Actually, JP had a great video, Awakening with JP, about all of the hate comments and all this stuff. I mean, what does that person think they're going to do? Is Ben Swann suddenly going to just dismantle because one person unfriended them? Like, what's the point of that? The point is that is meant to sway other people's opinions based on nothing but an emotional ploy. So Garbage is posting verified studies from the very people that guy probably listens to in regard to wearing his mask. Except he only wants to listen to this one, right? Well, this one's July 16th, the CDC said. Okay. So how is it that that's garbage if all he's doing is referencing one from a couple months before that? It's garbage because he was told it was garbage. He didn't even look at it. That's the point. And with all that information, knowing that the stuff is lies, we are going to be seeing this happen. As the article says, soon you will need to wear a mask to enter virtually every major retail store in America, and this is the reality of where this is going. Yeah, it won't be mandatory. What are you guys worried about? Yeah, well, maybe it won't be mandatory, but your life will cease to exist unless you're willing to go along with those quote-unquote not mandatory actions. Can't get a plane, can't go on a bus, can't go in the store, can't do anything, can't go to the movies, can't go anywhere without wearing a mask, so it's mandatory. Right? But here's the point. It says, coming into this week, Costco, Starbucks, Best Buy, Panera Bread were requiring customers to wear masks to go into their stores. But most other major retailers were still giving people the freedom to choose whether they wanted to wear a mask or not. Right, so people who actually care about our constitutional rights and believe in the tenets of this country. On Wednesday, Walmart and Kroger announced that they will be starting to require customers to wear masks in all of their stores. And the National Retail Federation is pushing all of the rest of their members to do the same thing, sort of like Derek's article in regard to vaccines, how the airliners And their lobbies are doing the same thing and basically pressuring all of them to not allow anybody on without a vaccine passport. But we're all crazy conspiracy theorists because that's not happening, right? By the way, it's already happening, and I'm going to show you in this show today. But it says in the days ahead, it is expected that most of them will follow suit. Yeah, of course they will. They're corporate. Corporations today might as well be your government. They have long ago blended together. Walmart says that they decided to make this change in order to bring consistency across all of their stores. Of course, that's the easy excuse, right? Well, since these other counties who have illegally and unconstitutionally mandated masks, well, then we're just going to follow suit, right? We're just going to toe the line because we're weak and feeble and we're going to do whatever we're told. Now, it says, as the number of confirmed cases has spiked, and guess what? And by the way, we're going to, wait. No, I haven't got to it yet. We're going to talk about something in regard to confirmed cases. And, oh, we did. I'm sorry. So I was wondering whether or not I've I'm all mixed up. A lot going on today. The point is we already talked about this. Right? Confirmed cases, right? Which turned out not to be. Actually, no, you know what? That's not even the one. See, but it's the same concept. I think I have an article lined up, maybe not, we'll see, about this exact topic in regard to confirmed cases. But right now, we're finding out all across the board that these so-called confirmed cases were in fact probable cases that were just bunched in with the confirmed. Oh, exactly like we thought was probably going to happen a couple weeks ago. That was a guess when I said it. Turned out to be right. I mean, you could easily guess at the kind of nefarious actions they take today. Anything that, errs on the side of their agenda probably will happen, right? I mean, that's how I looked at it, and turned out I was right. But anyway, the point is that, and hopefully we'll get to it, a number of confirmed cases, which basically means nothing based on all the information we know, has spiked. But deaths stayed down again in communities across the county recently. So too have the number and types of face coverings mandates being implemented. Right, so making you wear cloth masks even though they make you get more sick. Hey, maybe that's correlating, huh? Currently, about 65% of our more than 5,000 stores and clubs are located in areas where it's some form of government mandate, which is not allowed, right? Governments aren't allowed to do that. They cannot do this for many reasons, whether we're talking about forcing you to wear anything in the first place or the fact that they don't have the legal right. A mandate or executive order is not a law. They can't do this. Governors don't have the right to do this. They have to pass laws the way that we know this happens. They can't scream virus and emergency and start forcing you to do everything and start making laws based on executive order. But we've seen this building. That's the way our government's trying to get you to understand it, right? It's all they have to do is sign a piece of paper, right? They're your rulers. It's democracy, right? No, that's not how that works. Remember when Trump was making fun of Obama for ruling by executive order? He's done far more, and he will continue to do far more. Well, it's because Trump, the Democrats, yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. The same thing then. The system's broken. So they're ruling as a dictator. But you're okay with it now because you support him. They were okay with it then because they supported Obama, right? It's an illusion. Get past it. It says to help bring consistency across the stores and clubs, we require all shoppers to wear a face covering starting Monday. This will give us time to inform customers and members of the changes, post signage, and train associates on new protocols. They don't have the legal right to do that. They just simply don't, right? They can't tell you have to wear a red shirt to go in your store. They can't tell you have to do, look, there are certain things that they have already used, like say you have to wear, shoes, no shirt, no shoes, no service kind of a thing. But understand, even that to some degree is a pretty interesting line. But of course, people will, you could even go in that. I was talking about this with somebody the other day in regard to the similar idea, right? Do you think the government, let's say, has the right to tell you have to wear a seatbelt? Right? If we really want to take this all the way, no, I would argue they don't. But because we've accepted it, because we've, and also our difference is, I would argue, there is actually information that suggests that it does actually keep people safe. But that's irrelevant. It should be your choice. But the point is that in this case, we don't have that science that suggests that they're saying that we do. But overall, we can see that all of this stuff, it tends to go in this step-by-step manner. The boiling frog, the totalitarian tiptoe. So it's going to start like this. Just recommendation. I guess they're telling you can't go in the store at all, but it's not necessarily a government idea just yet, at least in some places. But that's what this is building toward, because it's going to be much easier for the government to just make it a mandate across the country, or even a law, because everyone's become used to it. That's what this is all about. But the ultimate point was they just simply don't have the legal authority to do this. They do not. We just become comfortable with allowing it. Now it says if you try to enter a Walmart without a mask next week, you'll be greeted at the door by a health ambassador. Doesn't that make you feel comfortable? Wearing a black t-shirt. And they said if they find it very interesting that they wore that color, which almost kind of seems to be ominous, right? In any event, it says these are new positions that are being created in order to ensure that only people wearing masks are able to get into the stores. Of course, Walmart is trying to make this sound as non-threatening as possible. It says, in addition to posting clear signage in front of our stores, Walmart has created a role of health ambassador and will station them near the entrance to remind those without a mask of our new requirements. Our ambassadors will receive special training, right? Give them a good couple days of online training and we're good to go, right? Special training to help make the process as smooth as possible. So a couple of people getting minimum wage at a Walmart are going to be deciding whether or not you can go in there based on their excellent training. The ambassadors identifiable by their black polo shirts will work with customers to show up at a store without a face covering to try to find a solution. Don't you love how they're saying that? The solution is you can't tell me what to do. They're going to tell you can't come in the store, right? Why don't they just come? They don't want to just flat out say you're not allowed in here without a mask to find a solution. We are currently considering different solutions for customers when this requirement takes effect. Okay, here's the bottom line to break out for just a moment and tell you something that I've been thinking about. This is an obviously concerted effort. It's like when we see people get censored off multiple platforms all at the same time. The Walmarts and the Krogers and these big corporations that all, ultimately tie back to a few small wealthy entities are all deciding in closed rooms somewhere that this is going to be the case. Okay. And the point is, I don't know that as a fact. My point is to just give you a visualization. Could be in a Walmart parking lot for all I know. The point is that they're doing this and they're deciding amongst themselves that this is the direction it's going to go. And that's why it's happening the way it is. We have a choice. We always have a choice. So if they're going to, knowing that they don't have the legal right and that's why they're doing this, you have the choice to not go there anymore. And I am officially right now calling on everybody to stand up and outright boycott anything that does not allow you in the store without a mask. If they have signs posted, whatever. Because I get the idea that you have bosses and people above you that may not understand things. Bottom line, I went into a shop yesterday around here. They had a sign up. He said, "Do you have a mask?" I said, "No, I don't." And I said, "No, I don't want one." He goes, "Okay." I will forever patron that store because I get that he's in a hard spot, but at the end of the day, he chose your rights over some arbitrary mandate that's not based in science, that violates your constitutional rights. Okay. This man took a proud and courageous stance because there could be side effects. Now, understand that I'm not necessarily calling on the people in these stores to do it because that's, but the bottom line is I am calling on people out there in general to simply not use your money at stores that will not allow you in without a mask. That's your choice. There's nothing illegal about that. We have a right to boycott, which is our constitutional right, even as they're obviously trying to take that away in regard to foreign countries and all kinds of things. But I, for one, will tell you right now, I will not spend a cent in any place that will not allow me in their store without a mask because they don't have the right to tell me to do that. And I also know that it's not based in the science and it's actually unsafe for you. So at the end of the day, if we will stand up and say hashtag, no, mandate masks, no, somebody out there give me a good hashtag for this that will catch on and we will spread it around. Or if it doesn't mean we have to do one, everybody out there start saying the same thing. If you're going to make me wear a mask, I will not spend money in your store. Vote with your dollar. That is the only way we have an actual effect on these people today. And you better believe it. If all of a sudden the vast majority of people stop patronizing Walmart, they'll change that very quick. Or actually petition the U.S. government for a bailout and probably get it. But the point is that we can change these things by not allowing them to take your money. Because some of these stores, I'll tell you, are violently enforcing this. And it should not be okay with you. I'm going to follow up on this. I mean it. I am going to 100% follow up on the idea that we need to boycott any store that is not allowing you in there without a mask. That is enforcing an unconstitutional act. It shows you they're choosing tyranny over you. Understand that. Now let's get back into it. The idea of what the reason I thought of that now is the idea of saying that, Walmart's trying to make this sound non-threatening. They're saying that they will essentially figure out a way to make this work. Making new positions, health ambassadors. I can't get past how crazy that is. These black shirt health ambassadors who are going to literally be. What happens if you walk in and you just say, no, I have a disability. I can't. Are they then going to physically force you out of the store? Are they going to call the police? The police may actually remove you, but understand that there's no law. They don't have the legal standing. But they will. Now it says, needless to say, this announcement by Walmart is likely to spark an avalanche of other announcements by other major retailers, which I promise you will happen because this is the plan. The National Retail Federation is already pushing all of their members. That's where you're going to get most of the issue, right? You're going to get most of this coming from the lobbies pushing their people to do so. Now it says the president of the National Retail Federation trade group wants retailers to adopt a nationwide policy that requires customers to wear masks and hopes Walmart's decision to do so would galvanize other companies to take similar action. So basically pressure them into do so. Shopping in a store is a privilege, it says, not a right. If customers refuse to adhere to store policies, then they're putting employees and other customers at risk. Okay, you're right. It's not a right. We don't have to go to your store. And you know what? I'm not going to. Walmart, Kroger's, I'm done. All of it. They've showed their true colors like they always have. We've always known what people like Walmart are really, they've always been basically absorbing and removing the market from the rest of the economy. Same thing that's happening now. Guess what Walmart's doing right now? It's buying up all the things that your business has opened up because you're no longer there. It says we will be told that this is just temporary. But at what point will we be able to start shopping without masks? Right? Think about it. This very week, the CDC director, Robert Redford, said that he anticipated that this fall and winter, quote, are probably going to be the most difficult times that we've ever experienced in American public health. Think about that. It's not like, it's almost like, and then once we get there, think about that. They keep telling us it's going to happen, and then it happens. They go, who ever thought this was going to happen, right? Every time. They're literally priming us for this. It's going to be the worst thing you ever experienced. So just get ready for it. So when that actually ends up happening and they blame you because you didn't do what you were told, wonder it ended up going exactly the way that they said it was going to happen. Is that because they assumed you weren't going to listen or because it was what was meant to happen? As always, it's up for you to decide. My job is only to bring you the information so you can decide for yourself. But you know what? We're all wrong. You know why? Because the Federal Reserve spoke up and they're telling you that mask wearing is important, right? Because banks and economists, of course, they know the right thing, right? We should all know that by now. We have mask wearing embraced by economists as the key to recovery. This is so silly. A top Federal Reserve official, right? Because that's the people the Americans trust, right? Is calling on Americans to wear masks. Right? Because why wouldn't you listen to an economist about wearing masks, right? Saying the practice can have crucial benefits for the future of the economy or economic recovery, even as mask fan political flames normally avoided by central banks. It says, we're confident that masks work. Oh, and that's it. Then he goes on to talk about other things. Oh, well, that's so great that makes me feel so much better. That very, very fraudulent people working in a private institution that's basically robbing Americans stands up and says, we're confident that masks work based on the lies being told by your government. Well, I feel better. And it says, if you want to reopen the economy faster, you want to get people back on planes and stores. Well, part of my job is, look at what he just said. You're not going to be able to go back in stores and these things without masks. He literally is saying that. You want to be able to reopen? You want to be able to get back in stores? Well, wear masks. Well, she is saying faster, but this is predictive programming. But this somehow supposed to be authoritative because this, like the people in the Federal Reserve are supposed to be. This is the elitist class, right? The oligarchy. That's why we're supposed to look at these people because they're in federal government positions and rich, that they're somehow better than, right? As Derek calls it, it's the predator class. They're constantly using you to get where they want, but because they speak up, well, damn, you better listen. Speaking of that. In regard to the other aspect of this that's very alarming, Donald Trump once again stood up and said, Vaccines, 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 the military, it's all coming your way. And yes, this is only one part of his speech, but there's nothing really out of context here. I'm not saying he's saying it's mandatory. I'm not saying that he said anything other than he exactly says in this clip. And that is exactly what I find alarming. Not what I'm suggesting, simply what he actually says. Take a listen.
Set up that as we get the vaccine or therapeutic, and we're set up militarily, we're going to be delivering it in record time. It's all set to move. We put an investment up front, and we have logistical people, generals, great people. They're going to be delivering this all over the country as soon as we have it, and we've made tremendous progress.
So, the military. The military will be delivering this all over the country. That sounds fantastic, right? Who cares about post comitatus and all the different things? You know, those things no longer matter, right? Because virus. Even though, wink, wink, Trump knows it's fake, but vaccines and Gavi and all the different things, the Defense Production Act and the national emergency, but it's all 4D chess, right? The money, the investment, he's talking about the money that went to these very same people, the people that people believe he's fighting. This is the real deal. And if people can't wake up from what's going on right now, then you probably never will. It is on its face obvious this is rolling out across the board. I mean, look, if you would have talked with Trump supporters before this happened about vaccines, they would have swore up and down that he would have fought to the death to keep that from them. Here we are. And now there's some other excuse for why that now makes sense. But understand, the same illogical, irrational mentality applies to the left and Biden and Pelosi just as much as it does to Trump. It only matters more in this moment because Trump happens to be the president. But it's pretty alarming. And my hope is that people out there can see this stuff. But that is the second time he said that. Military is going to be bringing you your vaccine. And on top of it, look, if it's whether or not it's and I do want to add, as somebody pointed out, he does also say or therapeutics, right? What does that actually mean? It could mean that he's open to other alternatives. It could mean any number of things. But to grasp onto that one word as if it's your savior because you want to believe that he's not talking about vaccines, well, you go right ahead. When the time comes, I hope you'll just acknowledge that you were wrong as opposed to grasping on to the next excuse that makes the next thing that's even more alarming okay in that moment. He's talking about or therapeutics. But the idea is these are all things being created by Big Pharma. The people that we used to talk about as the big problem, but now that Trump's in the middle of it, it's kind of like, well, some of them are okay. Sort of how this always works, right? Well, those are the white hats that we can't see or it's just a shell game. But the idea is that the vaccines are coming. That they're partnered with Gavi. That's the Gates-funded Gavi, the Global Vaccine Alliance, as well as though they're both then immediately invested in the World Health Organization. So circle still exists. All of it driving out. It's all coming your way and the military's involved. Now, even if they then say, well, it's not mandatory, but just like the masks, which they're already saying, by the way, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do that, you need your immunity passport. Not mandatory, though. But you can't go back to your life without it. It's just, that's actually not one that I wanted. Oh, actually, I'm glad I didn't show that. I had some other tweet up that I was going by. But the reality, guys, is this is something that's happening as we speak. The actual immunity passports, the thing that we're being told is conspiracy theory. It looks like we're good. We're right about an hour today. So that's, for us, that's a short show. But here to pretty much end this up today is a great article that I want to share with you guys from the New Yorker from May 22nd. Immunity passports and the perils of conferring coronavirus status. Understand this is in May. It says, in January, a Swedish entrepreneur named Joakim Holten co-founded SideHide, a new digital app intended to streamline hotel reservations. Weeks later, some of the first confirmed cases of COVID-19 were reported in Europe, even though we know that's not true since numerous people in Europe have confirmed that it was happening way back in 2019. Even Canada said 2013. Almost instantly, Holton told me demand stopped for whatever what they claimed was, I guess, digital identification for expediting hotel reservations, which, by the way, I do not buy for a second, and you'll see why. Almost instantly, demand stopped. Before the pandemic, that's very important. Before the pandemic, SideHide, his app, was working with a London-based company called Onfido, which uses artificial intelligence and facial recognition to verify identities. Okay, maybe at this point you could go, okay, maybe people will be, you're going to check into the hotel like you at the airport and you want just artificial intelligence and facial recognition and it's supposed to make it faster, which I don't buy for a second. And again, you'll see more why, but that right there, it just doesn't add up to me that this is, and that you're going to pretend that you're working on like next level artificial intelligence recognition software and it's only for an app for hotels. Who's funding you? I mean, that's absurd. And let's keep going. It says Hulton learned, and this is before the pandemic, that Onfido had created a way for users to upload serology tests to a private server and use facial biometric data to unlock the data and display the results. Oh, so that just happened to come up before the pandemic. Sure, serology tests, so, basically tests in regard to viruses. I mean, think about how ridiculous that is. And so he asked the company before the pandemic to build that capacity into his app. Oh, interesting. I mean, because that totally makes sense. That would be built into an app for hotel reservations, right? In June, Sidekill will launch again. In a few Miami hotels having added what is being called an immunity passport. Now, even if this is some bad phrasing by the article, which who knows, mainstream media is ridiculous, realize that this is still an app based on artificial intelligence and facial recognition. That if you want to believe that this next level thing that can just easily be transitioned into a massive technocratic surveillance network for monitoring vaccinations around the country from a hotel reservation app, if you believe that for a second, you're just simply not paying attention. The point is, this is clearly in my mind something that was being prepped and ready for exactly this and is now being transitioned into it because the time is ready. That's my take. Either way, here is yet another example of something that just so happened to be built before, that just so happens to be exactly what we need now. So in June, he'll launch again. And this is it. So that's launched now, by the way. That was in May. So last month, they launched this app for immunity passports. But go on, guys out there telling us that we're crazy for pretending that's happening. Right? Tell us that we're conspiracy theorists for pointing to the thing that's actually happening right this moment and was in effect last month. Immunity passports. Patrons who have been tested for COVID-19 antibodies and are shown to have them. That's weird. I just lost what I had highlighted. That's odd. Anyway, patrons who have tested for COVID-19 antibodies and are shown to have them will have that information embedded in a QR code. All right, so like that's a tattoo, right? To be scanned by hotel staff upon arrival. But let's still pretend like this is about hotel. Let's still force in the idea that it's just about hotel reservations. Yeah, go ahead and give me a tattoo on my arm with a scanned QR code in regard to immunity passports so I can get my hotel reservation, 10 minutes faster. I mean, obviously they're past that already. They're talking about this applying everywhere, but they still want you to kind of bring it down to the idea of the hotel staff. It says the Miami launch is a test, proof of concept, and if it works, Hulton is hopeful that it will help revive the travel industry. Right? Wink, wink. Behind the whole discussion is the fact that in the meantime, we're rolling out immunity passports that will verify whether or not you've been vaccinated and use that to decide what you can do in your life. That's all just unsaid in that paragraph. Isn't that lovely? It says, the idea, Hulton said, is to let the hotel staff know the guest is safe. That's all. That's all it's about. Just making sure that they know you're safe. Nothing else, right? Except that you then won't be able to get the airline to fly on if you don't have that tattoo. Won't be able to get the bus away from the hotel if you don't have that tattoo. You won't be able to hail a cab or go in the store or take a bus or do anything without that tattoo. But they just left that unsaid because that's the lesser important part of this discussion. Lovely mainstream media. I mean, this is happening, guys. Immunity passports are right now happening, and they're being tested, as they said, proof of concept in regard to hotel check-ins. It's just, if we can't see what's happening and rolling out, then I'm telling you, you're just not paying attention. It's all there for you. There's so much more I could have gotten into today. I didn't even plan to do an hour, to be honest, but I got to get to some other stuff in general, so I wanted to make sure I got this video for you. Again, apologize for it not being live. Please make sure and chime in the comments below and everything, because there's no chat here today. But all the links, as always, will be in the show. I mean, I might as well do this really quickly so you guys can see. so you guys can see the idea of where this stuff is. Because I'm not sure why there's been some kind of a disconnect here on why people can't find where this stuff is. But YouTube started censoring links in our channel. So if we just had a link to a channel that they didn't agree with, YouTube would censor based on those links alone, which is crazy. But here, so you guys can see in every video, this is one from yesterday or day before yesterday, or either way, day before yesterday. So in the show notes, which is right here, click show more, description, show notes, whatever, right at the top. Due to YouTube censorship, all video source links can be found at Last American Vagabond here. This link changes every show, and I add the link after I'm done. The link will take you to the article page on my website where all the links are listed. Very simple. But still, people, I get every time, oh, where are the links? You said there'd be links. It's right there. So I just hope people will see that. And so the reason I'm stressing this, it's very important to me that you guys know that all the links are cited every time. I mean, even things that I offhandedly mention half the time I include in the links. Okay. I even included the mask study links at the bottom of this one. All this is there for you. So it's very important. As well as everything else in here so you guys can see. If you want a T-Lab t-shirt that I've been wearing so you guys can see, help support the channel. You want to check out our other places you can support us. It's all there. Bitcoin donations, everything else. All of our links, or most of our links in regard to our social media platforms, on and on and on. It's all there for you. Hopefully you guys can see that. Hopefully you'll check it out for yourself. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, actually thinking, considering even things you don't agree with. Because as the paraphrasing, the quote goes, that it's to consider an idea without accepting it is true intelligence. That's important. Something that doesn't exist almost today. And that's why you guys make me happy every day, because I know you're here actually opening your minds to things that you may not agree with. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Now, in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask.